Well, I'm here with one of my best friends in the world today, and he's now a celebrity as of about a week ago. This is kind of exciting. Sean Bingham, welcome, man.
Thank you. I'm now a celebrity because I'm here on the podcast.
Yes, exactly. Boy, your life has really taken off the last week or so. No, and the reason I say that is Sean just last week was on, some of you know or familiar, most of you I'm guessing, with the Shark Tank.
Yes.
And your episode was last Sunday.
It was an incredible experience that I'll never forget it, dude. It was like... So as you know, we filmed it in September of 2017, and it took almost a year and a half to air. So we've been like keeping this a secret for a long, long time.
Yeah, you even kept it a secret from me for a long time.
Yeah, it's because it's one of those things where you don't want to like brag and then like maybe it doesn't air. You know, I put up some stats on my Instagram recently. Like it's harder to get on Shark Tank than it is to get into Harvard. Like the percentage of people that apply to those that get in is significantly lower that get on Shark Tank. And so they had like 45,000 people apply. They film like 180 of them, and then only 80 of those actually air. So I didn't want to like tell everybody and then have it not air.
Well, those are some crazy numbers. My nephew Easton, he just applied to Harvard. He's at 35 on the ACT 4.0,
okay,
and he didn't get in. So to give you an idea, I'm like, who are they letting in if he can't get in? But he's like a genius child, you know. But so that's pretty impressive, man, from a business standpoint. And well, it was kind of fun. Let's talk about the show for just a second. We'll kind of back up into kind of how that all came about and stuff. But on the show, it was kind of fun. You made a deal with Robert.
Yeah, Robert Hershey.
And you gave up what, 10% of the company?
20% on the show anyway.
Right, for $150,000, correct?
Yep. Yeah. And we went in asking for $150 for 10, and then of course there's some negotiating and ended up at $150 for 20.
Cool.
Yeah.
So before you went into the show, was there one of them that you were hoping to get a deal with more than the rest?
Yeah, I mean, so the producers tell you in advance, like, to basically rank your sharks. And so we knew that Bethany Frankel was our guest shark.
And for those that aren't familiar, she's the Skinny Girl.
Yeah, she started Skinny Girl brand, which is a really famous and popular food brand. She was also on Real Housewives of New York. She's kind of become a celebrity entrepreneur. Really smart, and she gave us an offer, as you know. And it was really enticing, but we had kind of like our pecking order, and we had her right behind Robert. The night before. We had kind of sat and discussed it. We'd been discussing it for weeks before, but the night before we kind of finalized, like, okay, you know, Robert, Bethany. And we knew that Mark, obviously everyone loves Mark Cuban. You know, we're not going to deny we would have loved to do a deal with him. But we knew he had Rugged Maniac, and he actually brought that up in the tank. It's a kind of a competitor. Not really a direct competitor, but kind of a Saturday event space, you know. Yeah. So we knew it was a long shot to get him, but we had Robert and Bethany right there, and we would have been... And I'm not just saying this to be like politically correct, but we would have been honored to do a deal with any of them. Like if nobody had made an offer but one, like we would have done the deal with that one. We were lucky to get 2 offers, and it was really kind of cool because they like fought over us. Like they legitimately like.
Yeah, Bethany was not happy when she didn't win.
No,
I was surprised you guys. It was funny. It was like you just kind of made a decision and like, okay, we're going with Robert. I was like, oh man, they just finalized it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a lot longer than you see on TV. We were in the tank with these sharks for 2 hours, and they cut it down to 10 minutes. And so there's a lot that you don't see. And there was a lot of good, like, joking back and forth, like some good banters. Like, it was a ton of fun. And we really wanted to work with Bethany. In fact, truth be told, I still would love to have her be on the team in some capacity. But you're forced in that moment to, like, make a decision. It's like, you know, so we asked them to go together. Which you've seen before on the show, where they like team up, and we thought that would have been awesome because then you get kind of the woman power that Bethany brings and her whole army of women, as she stated, and we really liked her stuff. But you still get Robert, which we had decided, you know, with his connections. The reason we went with him in the end was he runs the largest cybersecurity network in the world, and so his connections in the corporate space are like massive. I mean, he knows everybody, and we want to expand into these corporate events that we feel are more lucrative and kind of a better route for us to start to transition into. So we thought he was a better fit for that reason. And we knew that she had the same vision, but we didn't feel like she had the same connections that we could leverage as he does. Anyway, so when they said they wouldn't go together, we kind of had to choose. And it was genuinely tough. but we felt like Robert was a better choice. So that's what we did.
No, it's I'm sure it'll turn out to be a great adventure. Well, one of the cool things about it too is getting into more of the corporate side. I mean, you've been talking for about 6 months now. Yeah. I do a lot of events for my clients, and I'm going to test it. I want to do it with my team. Yeah. I've been wanting to do it for my clients for a long time. Basically, we'll do some kind of big adventure hunt one day, probably in the springtime, and then whoever wins, we're going to have, you know, like a down payment on a house or something for them. So I'm excited to.
No, exactly. And so I actually brought you up yesterday. We had a call yesterday with Robert and his team, and I brought that up.
Oh, cool. Did he say, tell me hi?
Yeah, he said, tell Jimmy he said hi. No, but like, so we started it, you know, backing in. I don't want to get ahead of what you've got, but just backing into how Adventure Hunt started. We had a company, my brothers and I, called KZ Gear. It still exists. It's sunglasses and beanies and stuff like that. But we wanted to come up with an event or a reason to promote the KZ lifestyle, this outdoorsy travel adventure lifestyle that would get people to, you know, basically just follow the brand that we'd created. We're trying to come up with a way to promote like the KZ lifestyle, this outdoorsy, you know, fun lifestyle. So we came up with the idea for Adventure Hunt. We're like, we wanted to encourage people to like get outside, like do more with your life, you know, experience everything around you, appreciate everything around you, be more social, interact with others, meet people, try new things. And anyway, so we had gone to all these trade shows for KZ where we sold our sunglasses and met a bunch of cool companies. So I just started calling them and saying, hey, we got this idea. Do you want to be part of it and just throw some of your gear into this treasure chest? And that was kind of the extent of what we knew we were going to do. The first time we ran it, we thought it would be like a 3-week event. People finished it in like 4 hours. And so we were like, oh, we better adapt and just make this a 4-hour event. Just plan on it being that. So we quickly did that, and it just started taking off. But we started it as a promotional tool to promote a marketing tool to promote our brand. Just like you're going to use it as a marketing tool to promote your services as a realtor and, you know, whoever you partner with from a loan standpoint. And we've had GM since Shark Tank. General Motors has reached out to us about using it to promote their vehicles to millennials. USAA has done a deal with us to promote their services at the Air Force Academy. So there's a lot of cool things we can do with it, and that's the direction we want to go. And that's how it started. It was used as a marketing tool to promote a brand, and we kind of want to use it for that moving forward.
Well, I love to, when we meet new people or we're out just being social and meet some new girls or whatever, and I love to say, like, yeah, this is Sean. He actually does treasure hunting for a living, so it sounds so fun, right? Yeah, every kid wants to look for buried treasures when he's little, so.
Then they think I'm a weirdo, so thank you for that.
Yeah, you know. Well, I want to back way up. Me and Sean have a cool story of how we kind of met. A previous guest I had on the podcast, Jimmer Fredette, is really the reason why we became friends. I'll go ahead and say. Yeah.
Thank you, Jimmer.
To tell the story, basically I had just started dating this girl, this back in 2008.
Yep.
And I didn't know Sean. Took her to a party. It was only our second or third date, but we definitely had gone on a date. And I'm going to tell this story, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll tell my version when you're done. Yeah.
But the long story of it is and we went sledding. A big group of people went sledding, and Sean didn't realize
it was like a full-on party sledding
for sure
that Jimmy had put on.
And you didn't realize that I was there with that girl. No. You got her phone number and started going out with her as well. And so we were both going out with the same girl. And I was pissed because I'm like, who's this guy that just got this girl's number while I'm on a date with her? But, you know, come to find out later on. But long story short, so for about probably a year and a half, I really didn't like you, and I made it well known to anybody that brought your name up. I was a little bit more petty back then. But what was funny, I remember one time, when we went to the club, it was for the
Liquid Joe's or whatever.
It's like it was the 80s dancer dudes, and I had an in with. Man, I don't remember, but they're pretty good.
Yeah.
But I had an in with the bouncer. I tipped him a couple times pretty good, and so he was fast forwarding everybody into the line that was with me, and I was like, I'm with her, him, and then I pointed at you and I said, I don't know that guy, and then her.
That's a true story. This happened.
And it was after that night that I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I being such a jerk to this guy? Like, because it'd been a long time. She had moved on and got.
Yeah, it was actually more like, I don't know this guy, and then it was kind of like a, forget you, pal.
Yeah, it was a very obvious, I don't want you here tonight.
Yeah.
And it was funny because that girl ended up moving back with her ex and got married to him and everything else. Yeah. And by then I was like, all right. And everyone kept saying, like, this guy's so cool. You like this guy. You should get to know him. So I reached out to you on Facebook.
Yeah.
And this was one of those moments, because I look at everything in our lives as when we become best friends. We've traveled all over the world. Our group of friends is 800 friends that are mutual friends of ours now, and really benefit each other's lives in so many ways. And if we hadn't taken this time, if we just let this animosity build up and never even talked about it, what we would have missed out on. And that's kind of like, it's a story that I love to share, because you and I became best friends, and I literally just I Facebook messaged you, and I was like, look, man, I don't like you. Here's why. Explain the story.
Yep.
I said, I don't want to not like you. Everyone says that I should like you, that you and I would get along very well. So I just want to let you know I am willing to talk about this. And then you...
Yeah. So then I responded and just said my side of the story, which was I had no idea that, that you were on a date with that girl, that you had been out with her or anything. And honestly, I feel like we buried the hatchet almost.
It was pretty quick. We both were like, yeah, this is probably a good thing. And what happened is I think we saw each other literally the next day at a BYU basketball game. This was Jimmer's senior
year. That's where Jimmer comes in,
And we ended up going to 7 or 8 road games together.
Yeah. So this is the year that Jimmer took us to the Sweet 16. We won't get into my feelings on that whole season, but it was the best thing ever. What could have been on that season, I mean. But we go to Vegas, we go to Denver, we go to New Orleans, we go to San Diego.
Yeah, we went all over the place, and it was fun because it was even if we weren't if there was I think in Vegas we didn't actually go together, but we both, as soon as we got there, all right, where's Sean now? Got to go find the other rowdies.
And then we went to the other places.
Dude, you know what's crazy is I haven't been to a BYU basketball game in about 5 years. I have this post-Jimmer depression. I read a stat on Twitter today that TJ Haas has started in 90 straight games. I realized I've never seen him play.
Yeah, no, I haven't either.
I don't know what it is. It's after Jimmer and that whole thing, I just haven't been able to get excited again. So maybe we've just grown up.
I do think that's a huge part of it. Your priorities just start to shift. I used to watch SportsCenter every single night. I don't remember the last time I watched SportsCenter.
Oh, I don't even know why I still have TV in my house. I refuse to watch a game by myself. It's one of those principles, though, you start thinking about, oh my gosh, how much time I used to waste watching sports. And I feel like my life has so much purpose now, and I'm so driven to go to the next level.
Yeah.
And to waste it watching sports. Even tomorrow, you've got the AFC and the NFC championship games. I've already booked an appointment with a client to go see a commercial building at 1, which is right during the Saints game. And
I'll be watching the game.
And then the other game, I've got something going during that too. So it's I don't know. It's I think I still love sports, but I love the camaraderie that sports brings.
Yes.
When you get together with your boys, anytime I watch a game, I'm probably watching it with you guys or watching it with some other friends, right? Or I'm at the gym on the treadmill. I can justify that.
Yeah, multitasking is great. But I can't I had some friends that wanted to come over a little bit ago and watch games, and I just told them straight up, I was like, look, you guys are welcome to come over, but I'm not sitting here watching 8 straight hours of football. So they used my house, and I took off halfway through and went and did other stuff. But
yeah, no, it's one of those things that I wish I could go back to my younger self and kind of I don't know. I think how much time I wasted. I mean, there was days where you're watching a Georgia Mississippi State football game. What are we doing with our lives? You know what I'm saying? Today, Duke and Virginia was on. I had to look it up. I'm oh, Virginia's undefeated.
Yeah. I think it's ending right now.
Yeah, it probably is. But I could
which I didn't know until the drive over here. Bo told me on the drive over here.
Nice. No, zero part of me would want to watch that. I'm just anyway. But so for those listening, I guess Jimmer. Those were the highlights. We both kind of knew though. We both knew in the moment. This is special.
Yep.
This probably isn't going to happen. We talked about it at the time. We talked about it right then. This is going to be 25 years before we get this again. Yep. Let's just take advantage of it.
Yep.
And you had been selling, because before you got into being an entrepreneur, you were selling door to door.
Yep.
And making a lot of money. I think you were, it was Pinnacle back then.
Yeah.
And you were one of their top guys or whatever else.
The top guy.
You were the top guy.
I was, yeah.
What was your best year? How many?
339 was my best year.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And that's, for those that are aren't familiar with the industry, that's about a $400,000 income in 5-6 months. So so you were making huge money. The reason I brought that up, you're making huge money. You're doing security, doing really well with it. And you transitioned out of it. It's one of the things that a lot of people struggle to transition out of that career because the money is so good.
Yeah.
But you are giving up your summers to go sell on doors every single summer, right? And so that's kind of the give take. So how did you get into the alarms, and how did you transition out of it so well?
So getting in, you've been in Utah County, everyone was recruiting back then. I don't know what it's like now for BYU students, but back when I started, which was 2006, I mean, everybody was doing it, and everybody would approach me every year. 2003, 4, 5, 6. Finally, 2006, I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. Because one of my friends from my mission, I served a church mission in Russia, and one of my friends from my mission had tried it the year before, and he was someone I really trusted, and he really enjoyed it, made decent money. And no offense to him, but he would agree with this. I knew I could be better than him, and so when I heard the numbers he had made, I was like, well. You know, I can better
if he
that.
made that,
Yeah.
I like to think a lot of people have gotten into real estate because they're like, if Jimmy's doing this well, just imagine what I could do, you know?
Little do they know.
I actually had a buddy's dad one time. He came and watched me call for sell by owners, and he literally watched, and he didn't know that was like my specialty. I was like the best at that. And he watched for like an hour, and he literally said, he's like, and this is like an older man that had some success, but then he'd kind of fallen, you know, down. And he's like, Jimmy, if you're this good at this, just imagine how good I'm going to be.
I do not mean it that way.
Yeah, I know.
It's just my personality is more fit for sales than his was, and he knew that, so he recruited me in, and he ended up making
smart guy.
Me, so, yeah.
Yeah. So he recruited you in.
He recruited me in, took me to a jazz game actually, and that's where they closed the deal. They lured me in with a seat in the suite at the jazz game, and on the drive home, I was like, you know what, like, I actually think I'm going to do this. And so I went out and did it, and you know, made $60,000, and you know, as a kid I guess not a kid, you know, I was 24 years old, and just made $60,000 in 3.5 months, and I was just like, wow. Yeah, I mean, how am I going to not do this again? You know, next year I cleared 6 figures. Next year was even better, and so it just kept getting better. But I knew I wanted to do something different. You know, as I did it for 5 years, and as I was getting close to my, you know, end of my 20s, I just thought, yeah, there's got to be something I can do with this money, you know. Simply put, like, you kind of wake up every morning and you're not excited about work. That was for me. There's plenty of people, and I am not looking down on the door-to-door industry. I actually love it.
I think everybody should do it at least for a couple of years of their life. I sold meat door-to-door for 3 years, so you think it's bad to sell alarms. Like, imagine packing a freezer of meat every day.
Yeah. And so I'm a firm believer in it, and I think people that do it are very smart. I just knew that for me, it wasn't like a long-term play for me. It was always going to be short-term, and it ended up being 5 years. But my brother and I, we would have these brainstorming sessions every now and then where we'd just sit down, and my brother Justin, so it's a different brother than I do Adventure Hunt with, but we would sit down and just discuss, like, what can we do to break free of this? Like, we know we're making fantastic money. It's an incredible job that we're very grateful for, but I'd love to get to that next phase of life, you know? Anyway, one day we're sitting there chatting, and he's like, what if we did American Idol online? And I was just like, we had like no business plan whatsoever. We were just like, that sounds awesome, let's do it. So
that's how you came up with TopLip?
Yeah, so TopLip was born. And it was just an online American Idols. At first it was just a cash prize. So you just get a bunch of votes on our website and you win money. And it quickly grew to where we were partnering with, you know, people as big as Maroon 5. Andy Grammer's one that we're, you know, worked with most closely. And if you won one of our contests in your city, you got to be the opening act at his concert. So musicians were just eating this thing up. So we weren't generating revenue. We weren't even trying to. We didn't even have a revenue model. But we did have a ton of like eyeballs, popularity, growth, recognition. We got voted one of the 10 best startups at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas.
Wow,
which is
that's a big deal.
Yeah. It's a huge, you know, music and tech convention down there. So there was a lot of positivity going on about it. And we had some of our original investors had some ideas for expansion and stuff. And anyway, we just got to a point, my brother Justin and I, we thought, you know, maybe it's best if we sell this to them and let them kind of take the baton and run in another direction with it. And they still, you know, so they formed a company called Gigg and acquired it from us, and they expanded it from there to some other things. But
so as an entrepreneur, I mean, because you did that for a couple of years,
yeah,
you even
2.5 years.
You threw a lot of parties. I remember you threw a party with Imagine Dragons back then too, right?
Yeah.
Did you have any inkling that they were going to become what they did? Because I think you booked them for, you told me, like $2,000.
$2,000, yeah. You can't even get a backstage pass for that now. But yeah, so my brother Jared and I, he's the one I started Adventure Hunt with. We just, I remember it was Christmas break, and I was looking for something to just kind of break out of my comfort zone, do something different, do something, you know, kind of unique, challenging, whatever. And I had this theory that in Utah County, and if any of you young people looking to make some money, this is an easy way to do it. Kids in college, like 18, 19, 20, they want to party. You know, like they want to go to a club, but they can't get into the club unless they have a fake ID or something. And in Utah County, most of them don't drink, and so they're just like looking for an excuse to get in a huge group and dance, you know? And so it was Christmas break, and I was like, Jared, let's do it. Let's just like commit right now. We're going to book Noah's, which is a big venue just north of here a little ways. And it was like $3,500 to book. We're going to hire a DJ, and we're going to throw a killer like black tie party. We're going to theme it black tie. The theory was if people are dressed up nice, they're going to be more likely to spend more money. And so we charge $15 a person. Well, $15 for guys, $10 for girls. We only advertised to girls because girls just follow the guys. So like apartment complexes, we never once put a flyer on a guy's apartment, only girls. We only texted girls about it. Facebook invites were huge back then. They weren't as spammy as they are now, so we made a huge amount of money just from Facebook events. But long story short, yeah, we would have 3,000 people show up. We'd make $25,000. And so it was a ton of fun. That was like my first entrepreneurial experience with Jared, my brother. Mm-hmm. And it was so much fun. And anyway, yes, one time we decided we didn't want to just be the dance party people, so we hired Imagine Dragons for $2,000. Ironically, not their fault, but ironically, that's the only event we ever lost money on.
You couldn't cover $2,000?
Well, we also had the venue, and then we hired a DJ. So that one, it was the typical cost was like $6,000 to put it on, and then we tacked on $2,000 on top of that for them. So it was $8,000, and we thought, we'll make 20, 25 like we have been. But it just didn't have a theme. It was like, is it a dance party? Is it a concert? What is this thing? And so we had like 700 people show up is all. And it just... Well,
it's kind of funny you say because I threw a lot of parties in college too. Yeah. We were always kind of crossing paths at that point too. And it's funny because the only event... Well, I would throw the events. I never charged. I did it more to build my network, to build my brand, right? Like when I first had my meat company, that's where I got all my meat salesmen. Yeah. And then once I was getting into real estate, I was like, I'll get clients from this. Yeah. So for me, it was more a way to just build my business. But it was funny because one event, I threw the Chris Farley fan club party. I had reached out to Chris Farley. Me and my buddies started the Chris Farley fan club, and I'd reached out to his brother, and we wanted to do a big event in Utah. Yeah. And so we charged, and the goal was to raise 10, 15 grand for the Farley Foundation or whatever. Yeah. And it was the only event I ever lost a ton of money on. I was at a time when I didn't have money to lose either. This was like 2007. I don't know. 2006 maybe. Yeah. And I literally was hoping like, okay, we just want to, get this money for Chris Farley's brother. He's going to love me. And instead, I think I lost like $6,000. And the only reason I wasn't crying to sleep is I got to put on the jacket that Chris Farley wore in Tommy Boy and
the
do
actual one.
Yeah. And I got to do the fat boy and a guy in a little coat thing. And so I was happy about that. But it is funny because you never forget those parties. When you lose money at a party, like it doesn't matter how cool you think it is. Yeah. If no one else thinks it's cool, or you just don't market it the right way. For us, the freaking Institute did a free party next door at the same time. Yeah. And college kids are going to the free party. Yeah. So long story short, I lost the awesome. Yeah,
we did. So, yeah, I totally agree with like the networking thing because since then, so this was back in 2010, 11 that I was charging for parties, Since then, I've thrown a ton of parties for free for the same purpose. It's just fun. It's social. It's a good networking thing. But when we first partnered with Andy Grammer, just to prove our concept, we had to, because we were trying to reach out to bands and saying, hey, we want to hold a contest to get somebody to be your opening act. And you can imagine they were like a little hesitant, like, how's this gonna work, So I said, look, we'll book a private event, and it's our event, not yours, and I'll show you how it's gonna work. Well, it went so well that his manager called me the next day and was like, I don't know what you guys did, but we want to do it at every show. They wanted to do it like 40-something shows. And we wisely said, I don't think we can handle that. Let's try it at like your top 10. So we did that, and it went really well. And we got a ton of more clients from it. But ironically, that night that we did the private event, we lost money that night. We lost like $2,000 or something. It wasn't much. But it was totally worth it because it proved our concept and got us a ton more gigs to where we were able to build a company that was sellable, So I think it just depends. Like I think if you're, the event you're going to do with Adventure Hunt coming up, or your fireworks show, stuff like that, that's an investment, that's not really.
Yeah, I mean, I literally have a budget for marketing that goes towards my events. Yeah. So you sell TopLip, and how did you decide what you're going to do next after that? Because now you've got all of a sudden you're starting over again. Yeah. How'd you come up with the idea for the KZ, the sunglasses?
So the same brother that I started TopBlip with, Justin, he's very creative, and he had this idea for sunglasses that like interchanged, and he had met with somebody who had a watch company where you could like swap out the watch band, and he was like, what if we did this with sunglasses, like little sidearm pieces? And I had just come from the US Open of surfing in Huntington Beach, where like everybody was wearing these sunglasses that were like black frame and then like neon yellow sidearms or pink or blue or whatever. And I was like, that's actually a really good idea. So again, I got to credit Justin for the idea. And then we together went and executed. So it started off as just this interchangeable sunglasses idea.
So did you like, how did you even know how to, because somebody's listening to this, I think people get ideas a lot. And one thing that I love about you is you're not an entrepreneur. Like people always say like, what do you do? Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. But like they're not. They kind of have ideas and they never execute anything. Like you've now successfully sold part of 3 companies. Yeah. That's a full-on entrepreneur, right? But when you had the idea, there's such a gap between I've got this idea and I'm going to go execute. Like how did you know how to get the manufacturing? How did you know how to, even just get them made or be able to make them custom the way you wanted? Yeah.
Honestly, I hate to say it, like it sounds so simple, but you just figure it out. Like Google is a great tool,
it's like it's 2019. Figure it out.
And so, and you want to partner with people that are that same way, that just figure it out. They don't, I tried, I don't know how to do it. It's like, we'll figure it out. Like just before I came over here, there was an article written on us in Forbes, which is a pretty big deal from the Shark Tank thing. And the writer, she had like a little error that I didn't want it in there. She misunderstood something from the show where she thought the prizes changed, from person to person based on the registration. It was just something she totally had misunderstood. And I thought, gosh, I love that like there's an article about us in Forbes, but I hate that there's like a little mistake. And so I went to work finding out who this person was so I could get her email address and email her. And Forbes, like they make you create some account, and their website kept erroring out. I couldn't create an account. And I really thought about this exact thing. I was like, this is where a lot of people just give up. And I'm like, I can't do it. And I was like, no, I'm going to keep searching her. So I Googled her name, her name, Forbes. And then I found her on LinkedIn, found that she wrote for some other platforms as well, went to those platforms and got her email address and emailed her. Wow. So like, you just got to work and figure it out, So like we went on Alibaba. And people think like, oh, it's so ghetto, but like, no, like it's great.
There's
tool.
a reason it's like one of the biggest companies in China.
One of the biggest companies in the world. Yeah. And so we went on Alibaba, and you will deal with a lot of crap on there. There's a lot of garbage. There's probably a lot of factories that aren't kosher, with their labor and stuff. So you want to be careful to make sure you get the right ones. But we weeded them out first by how well we were able to communicate with them in English, because we don't speak Chinese. And so it was important to us to have good communication. So we weeded a bunch out that way. Then we started having them send us samples, and we got to a point where we liked the sample, and we said, yeah, let's produce 5,000 of these. And so we got 5,000. Here's another example. Like they arrive. We don't have anybody for like importing, which we didn't even know that you had to. So we literally go to the airport, me and my brother with my truck, and we're like, hey, we're here for our sunglasses. And they're like, have they gone through customs? Have you imported them? Have you done this? All these forms, all this crap. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, we haven't done any of that. So,
you were expecting to show up like on your doorstep.
Yeah, like a UPS thing or something, We were like annoyed. We even had to go to we quickly found out, Dan at Cargo Link, I still remember him. This was 2013. And they told us, here's some companies we know that we import with through a lot that like we deal with. So we went and met with Cargo Link, and they were an importing company, and you pay them a small fee and they do everything for you. And so I was like, so do we need to like come and pick them up? Like, no, like we'll bring them right to your office. And we're like, oh, that's fantastic, And so you just figure things out. Like the best advice I could give would be just start. Like just start working. And when you come to a hurdle, like cross it, like get over it.
Well, that's kind of like with me with the podcast, right? I sat on this idea for about a year. Yeah. And it was finally Gary Vaynerchuk. I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he's like, dude, you're not going to know how to do this. And the first couple you do are going to suck. But just start. Yeah. So I literally Googled what do I need to start a podcast?
Yep.
And then I came across an article by Tim Ferriss, and next thing I know, he literally had a checklist. You can actually go to the Amazon link right from his article, so he gets paid something on it. Of course, yeah. And I bought everything that he recommended.
Yep.
And half of it's still in my drawer, but the stuff that I needed, and next thing you know, you're rocking and rolling, right? And I do apologize for the audio on the first couple episodes, but I was figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
But that's what you do. And it's like, you just have to start. I'm sure your first sunglasses weren't your best ones, right?
They sucked so bad. Like, I look back
I bought
at
a lot
them,
of those.
And I'm like, yeah, thank you. I look back at that and I'm like, how did we would have moments where, like, I can't believe, like, we have a business. Like, look at what we used to be. We look at these old pairs of sunglasses. I mean, nicks in the side. I remember every single pair had like a nick in the exact same spot, and we realized that it was from where like their machine must have like clamped down before they like put the coating on it.
Maybe they just thought that was part of your logo or something.
And we had no packaging, like no branding. It was just like we'd put it in a bubble wrap envelope and ship it off, but we started making. I mean, our first month we did $18,000 in online sales.
Wow.
And we did that through influencers. I almost feel like we pioneered influencer marketing. I mean, this was 5 years ago, six years ago. We were paying people on Instagram to post about us.
Before it was a big thing.
Way before it was a big thing. Way before there were Instagram ads that existed, And, YouTubers, like we would just pay influencers. Anyway, so then we evolved, and then it got to a point where I was like, if this is going to be a real business, I better go figure this out a little bit better. We got to improve our product. We got to switch manufacturers. So I came up with a list of like all our pain points. Again, went to Alibaba, got a list of, I think it was started around like 50 factories. Narrowed it down again just through email, narrowed it down to 9. And I went and flew over to China and I met with all 9 of them. And they roll out the red carpet for you because they want to win your business. And so you just get on a plane and they'll take care of the rest. Like really? They're picking you up with signs, they're taking you to dinner. You'll even pick you up at your hotel. So I didn't rent a car. I just made appointments and I said, hey, I even had them picking me up from competing factories. I was like, I'm going to be at this factory. Come pick me up here. Take me to yours. And anyway, I asked all of them to come up with a new hinge, which was our biggest problem for the interchanging sunglasses. And there was one factory. I loved the hinge they'd come up with. I didn't really like them that much or the quality of the rest of their work. And so I literally took the hinge and took it to a different factory and said, please make this. And so it was awesome. Like the last, so we had met with 8, and on the 9th one, I was ready to just be done and go like enjoy my time in China. I thought I'd like gained enough knowledge to make a decision, and I remember thinking like, no, that's stupid. Like you flew all the way out here for this reason. Like just meet with one more, and it was that one that we ended up going with. Wow. And it was her that I gave the sample to. Like right when she picked me up, it just felt different. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, she's like more with it than anyone else has been. Got to the factory, like, oh, this is like cleaner and more legit than any of them have been. And I'm expecting the price point to be like triple, and it was the cheapest of all of them. And I was like, this is a total no-brainer. So that would turn into be a huge thing. And then from there, we introduced floatable sunglasses, and that's when the business really took off, and it was like 2 years later we sold it.
Well, and so you sold it because you basically realized this adventure hunt, what was supposed to be a marketing tool.
It was more fun. It kind of fit my personality better.
Yeah, well, because you've been to how many countries now? You've been all over the world.
Yeah, 42. I think you passed me recently.
I did. Yeah, I'm at like 50 now, so we'll have to go on some together again. So you've been to 42 countries. Yeah. You're always snowboarding and doing all the boating and all that, rappelling, rock climbing, all that kind of stuff. So did you incorporate, did you say, because one of the things I try to tell people is decide what you want your life to look like and then build a business around that. Yeah. That's what I did in 2010 with my real estate business. I said, okay, I've been working so hard, pounding the phones. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I burned out in 2009, right? Yeah. And so in 2010, I sat down and I said, what would my perfect business look like? I was like, I'm going on vacations with high network people. Mm-hmm. I'm having these big parties that people love to come to. I'm just giving back in every way I can. I'm renting out movie theaters. I'm using social media as a tool and going to lunch once or twice a day with my clients. And I built my life around what I wanted it to look like, my business, and then it just kind of blew up. Yeah. So I guess, did you kind of do the same thing? Just say like...
Yeah, very similar. Like the entire KZ brand was built around a lifestyle that we loved. And so we marketed most of the marketing material to this day that KZ uses. I sold the company 2 years ago. Most of the marketing, most of the ads you see are still me, you know, because it was just videos that I had taken on my travels. Like one of the most popular ones we did was I went to Turks and Caicos, which is like the most beautiful beaches and water you're ever going to see. I don't think there's a ton else that place offers, but it does offer that. So I went down there for fun, but I would take my work with me. So I brought all my floatable sunglasses down, and I did tons of photo shoots and video shoots of like these awesome sunglasses floating in this like crystal clear Caribbean water. And I'm wakeboarding. Nobody wakeboards with sunglasses, but like I did for the video. And we had sick drone footage. Anyway, that turned into an ad that made us hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like just cool sunglasses floating in a beautiful location. And so, yeah, we did. We took a lifestyle that we loved and we turned it into a brand. And then it turned into an event, which turned into a different company, and it allowed us to sell the first company. So yeah, it is very similar to what you've done.
Wow, no, that's awesome. Well, so let's jump into Shark Tank. How did you get? I remember you just told me one day, like, dude, I think we're actually going to be on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And I knew a couple other people. You know, I knew Garrett G. and Susan Peterson, and a few other people, Jeremiah Robinson, that had been on Shark Tank. But it seems like Utah people find their way into reality shows, but like one of your best buddies says that you're like, wait, what? Like, talk to me there. So how did that come about? How did you get on the show? Like, it's harder to get into than Harvard. So how did you pull it off?
So we had applied to be on the show with KZ, and we got really close, but didn't quite make it on. And so that was like kind of disappointing, but we were on their radar. And so literally fast forward from that day, it was probably 2014 to 2017. In May, I just got a DM on Instagram, and it was this gal. She said, "Hey, I'm now the head of casting for Shark Tank, and congrats on selling." So I sold KZ. I skipped in a very important part. I sold KZ, and when I sold it, I posted, this is the power of social media. I simply posted like, "Hey, sold my business, really exciting," and got a DM. And said, "Hey, congratulations on selling your business. I'm now the head of casting for Shark Tank. I've been following you ever since you applied for KZ to be on. Your new business looks really cool. We'd love to have you on the show if you're still up for it." So I was like, duh.
that easy. But that's kind of cool because a lot of times people think the end product is like, wow, his company made it, right? Yeah. Like I just had the opportunity to listen to Rachel Hollis. I was in a little mastermind group with her, the woman that wrote, Girl Wash Your Face. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because she talked about, like, people were like, wow, she just made it. Her book made it. And she's like, that was my 6th book.
Yeah.
She's like, nobody read the first 5, right? She's just kind of like, same thing with you. It's like, they might be like, oh, these guys just caught a lucky break with Adventure Hunt. Well, no, because you'd set up 2 previous businesses, she was able to see what you'd done. You sold your business, so it was a successful entrepreneur. All of a sudden, she's like, this is somebody we want the Sharks to be in business with because there's actually an exit strategy down the line. We can be, a success story. And so it kind of looks like this fell in your lap, but it was all that success before that brought it.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this the other day. Like, there's no one thing or one moment where it's like, oh, I got rich. Right. Like, there's so many little things that you have to do. And it's still a daily process. I'm not claiming by any means that I've made it. And you just got to never stop grinding, and that's a term maybe people don't love, but like that's really the truth. Like, you have to just go, and you have to be evolving constantly. Like, I remember when the influencer marketing stopped working with KZ, we were just like, oh no, like this is like what makes us all of our money. And then Instagram changed their algorithms where like it was no longer sequential. It was like almost like a Facebook feed where it just was randomized. Like, you're seeing stuff from 2 days ago, and we were like, well, crap. And so instantly the power of that marketing dropped quite a bit. And it was because Instagram wanted to bring in their own ads, right? Mm-hmm. And so we tried to keep going with the influencer marketing for a little bit to see if we could, and it just wasn't working. So we went away from it for a while. We've come back to it now, but we went away from it for a while and learned. I mean, I honestly consider myself an expert at the online Facebook and Instagram ads, like the actual platform that Facebook uses, Ads Manager, because I just said, you know what, like this is the new thing that I need to know. And it was, it existed before that, but not for Instagram. Mm-hmm. And we hadn't even been doing much of it on Facebook. And that thing like carried us for the next several years because I just dove in. Well, first I hired somebody to teach me, paid him $1,000 a month to like just teach me how to do this. Had him make me videos, and like then I had him like kind of mentor me as I would make the stuff. And it got to a point where I felt good enough to go off on my own, and we were spending enough that we had weekly phone calls with Facebook and stuff, and so we learned that platform extremely well. And so I don't remember how I got off on this line of thought, but like, you just got to make things happen.
No, well, there's so many. There's the reason I was letting you go. There's so much genius in what you were saying, though. Like, you knew, you kind of had the foresight that this is going to be big. You hired an expert or somebody that knew what they were doing, and you paid them, which is an important principle, I think. Like with me, I've paid mentors up to $20,000 to teach me for a couple of days what they knew, because I knew that information was going to bring me so much money later on, right? Yeah. And so I think there's so much power, and that's why what you did is so cool. And then, you learn it, and then all of a sudden you can adapt when it kind of got taken away from you and do other things. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, you weren't only just a genius with marketing when it came to the influencer marketing, which, by the way, have you seen the Netflix movie Fire?
No, I haven't.
So it just came out. Remember that fire festival that they ran at the island or whatever? Yeah. And it shows the power of social media. It's so fascinating because having been around more and more influencers, it kind of is a crazy world we live in. And that dude had some genius, but he basically booked like the 9 top models in the world, like Emily Ratajkowski and Alessandra Ambrosio, and he makes this promo video, and then they go out and like the reality versus what they showed it was going to be was like, could not have been more different. And all these rich kids were paying upwards of $150,000 as much as everybody was paying $5,000 and up. And it's kind of interesting. It showed the dichotomy of the world we live in, where you've got this like online Instagram world versus the reality, I guess. And it's kind of funny because we both are 37 years old. We're 2 months apart. We've kind of grown up with this whole social media thing, right? Like, I remember when we would literally put on our Facebook status, I am sad or I am hungry, because it said I am, and you kind of were supposed to fill in the blank.
They were helping us out.
Yeah, and like anytime you got a third date with a girl, you change your relationship status to complicated, and some of those early errors. But it is just kind of fascinating. I mean, I feel like we've been able to live this entire generation. We're very well growing up. Both of us, you go through your 20s, a single LDS guy, Mormon guy, and we've had very similar paths in the sense that you just are trying to kind of figure out, on one part of you doesn't feel like you should get married, and so you're not married, but then you got the culture telling you to get married, and so me and you have had similar, I don't want to call it struggles with the expectation of that, but I would guess it's just different. Both of us had to go through that. And if you don't mind, I'll say this, it's funny, The Bachelor's out right now, and the dude, like, the big story is the guy's a virgin, and I'm always like, well, I have a friend that's 37-year-old virgin, my buddy Sean Bingham, and you are, I will say this, now that Tim Tebow's getting married, I think there's, he's married Miss Universe, so. Oh, well. Yeah, I guess.
Paid off.
Joke's on you guys. Tim Tebow wins again. It's hilarious. I freaking love that guy. Funny. Yeah, it's really funny. But, so I guess for me, it's just kind of funny because there's less than 5 people, I think, on the planet that have probably had as many opportunities as you have had if you wanted to lose your virginity and has not. And so, I don't know. I just want to kind of dig into that for a minute. How have you experienced being single into your 30s? Like, if you're willing to get a little vulnerable with it, I think there's a lot of value in the way that because I really respect you and just kind of the person that you are. It's, I think, why we get along so well, because even though we're very different in a lot of ways, we've gone through a lot of things together as well. But, so has it been difficult having that expectation where everyone around you, thinks that you should be married, but you're living single? Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, for starters, I can admit, if we're getting vulnerable, I can admit I want to get married. It just hasn't happened for me yet. I want to get married. I want to have a family. I want those things. And credit to my parents and family, like they've never bugged me. Like, I think most people, that's where they get a lot of the pressure, is maybe their parents are like, hey, like my mom did give me what was it, like the 5 Love Languages book, which is like a subtle hint to like, you're clearly not very good at this, so maybe learn this.
Dude, my mom had like a family fast for me when I was like 30 years old.
I'm sure that
this was like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
You know how many times my name's been dumped in the prayer roll at the temple for me to find a spouse or something? My poor mother. I remember when I was
wrecking her testimony.
Dude, true story. I know. It's like, Mom, you got to pray harder. When I was like 28 or 29, I remember I had a roommate. He was like my best friend from like my youth, Dave Muir, and to this day is one of my 9 best friends from high school. And he was living with me in Provo, and and he would come up for Sunday dinners to Salt Lake, and my grandma would come every now and then, and bless her heart, rest in peace. But she like called my sister one time when she came and he came, and she's like, is Jimmy, you think maybe he just, she couldn't even say it, dude. She's like, he dresses really nice. And my sister Jenny was just like, no, Grandma, he's good. Like, I don't think he likes boys. So, but it's kind of crazy. Like, that's like, I was only like 28, 29 years old. It wasn't like I was some whack job, And so it is like that expectation that kind of comes just naturally.
Yeah, and so there is an expectation, and again, it's something that I do want, but I haven't felt too much pressure. Like I've never felt like I was like a failure or something like that because I wasn't married. There is kind of like a unique spot you're in the church, and I know you can relate where it's like. And when I say the church, I mean the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where there's kind of like, there's not very many people that are single in their 30s and that are still active in the church. It's kind of like most people either kind of stop going to church or they are married. And so I will admit there is a struggle there where I kind of feel out of place sometimes. Like I don't really know, do I go to the singles ward where I'm like a decade older than most people? Do I go to the family ward where I don't have a family? So I just go to church because I go to church to go to church, but you do kind of feel a little bit like, I feel a little bit out of place in both spots, and so it's like, I don't know what to do. Well,
and this isn't, it's not a religious podcast in any sense, but I kind of want to dive into that a little bit because, like, what do you feel like what, I don't know, where you say I don't really belong. I think so many people have any kind of religious background where at some point you maybe don't feel like you belong in that group, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean more from a social aspect, for the record.
For sure. Yeah. And that's what I was getting at. But so what would you think, like having few people have been on as many, how many first dates have you been on, would you say?
Not as many as you. But a lot. I don't know.
Several hundred.
Hundreds, yeah.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
You are an expert in the field of dating through the 20s and 30s.
Yes, if you want to learn how to get dates, I can help you. If you want to learn how to have a successful relationship, I am not the one to ask.
Did you ever almost get married?
Twice, yeah. So once you're aware of, and once was when I was 22. Awesome girl, I just didn't want to get married. Like the thought of marriage was just like, and this sounds really bad, and I'm almost hesitant to say it publicly, but I would see guys on campus that had rings on, and I would like feel sorry for them. I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is college. Like, maybe save that. And so don't follow that lead because it's you'll end up 37 and single. But that's how I felt. That was me. Like
that's what
I wanted to live. I just wanted to be more free, I guess.
Dude, I took it a step further. I got engaged twice, where I just felt this pressure, where I was like, I probably should get married. So I guess at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get at though is I think that there's a lot to be learned from somebody like you. That you've been on so many dates, right? And you've experienced this cultural shift where you went from totally belonging, where you were definitely had this home within the social aspect of the church. So what, I guess, for you, what advice do you have? You say don't be me when I was 22.
That's a joke,
obviously, right? Because I think you can see where you turned out at 37 and see the benefits of that.
Yeah, and I don't have any regrets. Like, I really don't. I think what happens is, from a church aspect, I know it's not a religious podcast, but you and I have seen firsthand, because we've known each other our entire 30s. I think we were in our late 20s when we first became friends. You not having a place socially in the church kind of helps you realize how into the actual church you are versus how into the social aspect you were. And I think people start to decide, like, okay, is this what I really want? You're kind of tested almost.
Yeah, you're a lot more you have to really have a stronger, call it, testimony of the church if you're going to go to a home ward where there's not any pretty girls, right?
Yeah, because it's easy to go to church when it's like almost like a party,
Yeah.
That's easy. But when it's not, do you still go for the worship aspect, And so I'm just hanging in there, and I like it, but yeah.
Well, no, it's cool because it's like, and that's one of the things why we get along so well is like, we don't really care. I think as you get older, you kind of realize, like, you quit caring like what people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of care more like who they are and how they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's something that we've done very well is, I mean, there's obviously, nights where we don't hang out because I'm doing something or you're doing something a little bit different now. But at the same time, we're always still inviting each other. There's still that respect and that like we want to hang out and be around each other. And that's one of the things I try to tell everybody is like, somebody the other day was like, I don't think I can date this girl anymore. She's just too strong on her beliefs, her very, very pro-feminist beliefs. Mm-hmm. I was like, dude, why don't you lean into that a little bit?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't like being around very feminine, like pro-feminine women, like that are like anti-men, right? Like
and there's a difference. Right?
That's what I'm getting at. Like the anti-man thing is one thing, right? But like a beautiful feminine woman is a whole different thing, and it's very actual. And so I was like, just kind of dig into it a little bit before you just kind of move on, because you'll probably learn a lot from her at least. Yeah. I think that's one of the beauties of getting older is you do kind of start to just be around more different types of people as life takes you. For example, you've been to 42 countries and kind of end up in different places.
Yeah, and you do, travel, you can attest to this. Like, man, it like opens your eyes. Like, it changes you. Like, it literally changes who you are as a person. Like, I remember the first big trip I did, it was my first summer selling, and I had this goal to like travel the world. Like that was what I was working towards, which I think is, you're very, very big on goals, and you're doing a goal mastermind, like, or you did the goal, what do you call those things? Where you did the seminar?
Yeah, mastermind. Okay, 12-week course that you can get at jimmyrexgoals.com.
Were you putting like the graphic right here?
Yeah, good plug. Yeah.
No, but like goals are very important. So my goal was I want to travel the world, and so I went off. Did well in sales that first summer, and then I took off for 3 months and traveled the world. Didn't take a phone with me. I was just internet cafes if I wanted to connect with people via email or Facebook.
Wow, did you go by yourself?
Me and my friend Jake.
Wow.
So just two of us for 3 months.
Holy smokes.
3 months. We went all through Europe. We went to Egypt, Thailand, China, Australia. Went to Tahiti by myself at the end. Camped on the beach for a week by myself. And I came home from that trip like a different person. Like, you just have such a different perspective. And I've never stopped traveling, never stopped trying to experience new cultures, because every time you're just like, oh wow, like there's amazing people everywhere that are like so different and diverse. And anyway, I don't remember where we were going with that. We're just having good conversation.
No, it's good. Well, that's I preach the same thing. The whole reason I love to travel is because it really does open your eyes, not only from a personal standpoint, but also even a business standpoint. Yes. You like see how people do things differently in all these different countries, and your intelligence level is just going crazy because you're picking up stuff all over the place, and you're just learning different cultures. And I remember, like, it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful that I served the mission is because for 2 years I literally was forced to be with somebody else 24 hours a day. And I'll be honest, of the 8 dudes they put me with, I don't think I'd hung out with any of them before my mission. Like, and that's your one friend. That's like your go-to person. And you are just going to get along. Like, the lesson to be learned from that, to be able to be with somebody 24/7, literally, and you learn to coexist that way. Like, how grateful I am for that, because it's probably served every other relationship I've ever had. Like, would I be as patient with people? Definitely not, right? Would I be as understanding or have as much empathy? No. And so I think as you travel and you do these different things, you pick up different lessons along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I can attest to that same thing with regards to just the mission experience. Like, I think that's what helped me become such a good salesman too. It's like I spent my entire 2 years talking to complete strangers, stopping strangers on the street and striking up a conversation about God and Jesus Christ. And that's like kind of when you'd say it like that, it's almost like kind of an awkward thing, but like that's what I did for 2 years. And I know you did the same thing. But in Russia, especially, where there aren't very many members of really any organized religion other than the Russian Orthodox Church, we didn't have like members to work through to kind of like get kind of warm leads, if you will. And so we were cold calling the entire 2 years. And so I came home kind of an expert at just striking up conversations with strangers, and I think it's served me ever since then. Like, not just in sales and business aspect, but just socially, like whether it be dating or networking or anything, like there's just an advantage to knowing how to talk to people.
Yeah, I remember the first day that I went and sold door to door for selling meat.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you got to stay out for at least like 5 hours if you really want to make any money. And I'm like, literally had just been on the doors for 11 hours a day for 2 years. I'm like, 5 hours, I'll double it. I'm going to crush you guys. Yeah. And literally I was out selling the other like 9 dudes in the office together, you know, within like 3 days, because it was like, I was like 11, like who goes out? And I found out they were all going to sleep in their car minus 2 hours a day. You know, they weren't even doing anything. But yeah, I think that work ethic and so many other things that come from that. Well, dude, it's been fun to watch your journey. It was fun to watch Shark Tank last week. Yeah. You threw a big party, by the way. That was kind of cool.
It was.
Had an opportunity to have all your friends there. And one thing that you do really well is you do meet friends very easily. You're very easy to, I mean, you have one of the biggest social circles I've ever seen. I literally think we have like 2,000 mutual friends on Facebook. Last thing I want to touch on, because you're just so good at this, but what are a couple things that you do that you've noticed that you do differently, or that you know do uniquely, or that you do strategically to help you become friends so easily with other people?
That is a great question. A couple things that immediately come to mind are giving people compliments is a huge thing. Like, I remember when I read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I need to read it again. Like, it's just a phenomenal book. Like, it's so good. Like, the principles in it are so good. So I would suggest reading that book to anyone for any reason. But if you can, like, give somebody a compliment, find something, like, you have in common. I remember in sales, I would always look for something, like, as I'm going door to door, like, something where I could make a joke about, or find something in common. Like, oh, this guy has a motorcycle. I have a motorcycle. Let's talk about that before I say anything about what I'm selling, you know? Oh, they've got a flag for the Michigan Wolverines. I'm going to make a joke about the Ohio State Buckeyes because I know that's the rival, you know. So find something in common that you can build off of. Like you and I, Jimmer Fredette. Like, there was our common ground. We became buddies. Yeah. You gave me a compliment in the thing. You apologized. So you were humble. You apologized, and you said, hey, everyone says how great you are. So I think those are two things that come immediately to mind, and just helping others before you. Mark Cuban said once, this is maybe getting off the subject a teeny bit, but I think it applies. He was talking about raising money. And he said people that go to ask for money will often get advice, and those that ask for advice will often get money. And so if you're going to like try and network with someone bigger and better than you, don't go in there asking them to open up their pocketbook. Mm-hmm. Humbly go in there and ask them for advice, and they'll probably see something different in you, and they might be like, you know what, like, I actually want to invest in this guy, you know? I think that same principle can be true of any relationship. And one thing I thought about, just as I'm rambling here, one thing I have done that it does strengthen relationships a lot is I'll ask people for favors. Like, I'll ask them to do something for me, and I'll offer to do anything right back in return to them. But I've stayed on couches and floors, especially as a hustling entrepreneur, all over the country with people that I barely knew. Hit them up on Facebook, like, hey.
Well, we tend to love those that we serve, right? So I remember somebody told me this with dating one time. Like, dude, you're always giving too much. Like, just let them serve you a little bit. I'm like, well, how do you do that? Like, I don't really need anything. Like, the dude's like, fake a headache on your next date. Just freaking pretend you got a raging migraine. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He goes, try it. So I did. Yeah. And it worked. Chick was like all about it. It's because we fall in love with those we serve, and like, I think women especially, they have a caring soul. They want to help nurture and things like that. So that's a great point, and it's something that you don't often hear in like ways to network and things like that. But it is okay to ask favors. Yeah, asking things that are like legitimate favors though. Like, I hate when people ask me for people's autographs. I'm like, go to eBay. Like, I'll go buy one for $22 and tell you the guy signed it for me. You know what I'm saying? It's such a dumb thing to ask for. But
you got to ask it in a way that's like, hey, no pressure whatsoever. Just throwing this out there. I'm going to be in town. I've got this startup. Like, funds are tight. This is how I would pitch it. I'd be like, we're just starting this thing up. I would love if I could just crash on your couch for a couple nights. If not, totally no big deal. Everyone would say yes, and I was like genuinely grateful. I'd always do something nice for them. They weren't expecting payment. They were genuinely nice people. And I would always like leave a little note with like a gift card, and I'd take them to dinner while we were there. So it still would cost me like a little bit of money, But they were saving me way more than if I was staying in a hotel.
Well, think about when I was between houses, when I was going back and forth to Arizona.
Yeah.
I slept on your floor for like, this is only like 5 years ago. I was sleeping on your floor for like 6 weeks or something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we were bunk buddies. You
Yeah.
know,
And you bond with people.
Totally.
Like,
We do. Some of our best chats we ever had were in that room, me on your floor. You I think I had a mattress. People don't think I was just slumming totally. But anyway. Well, dude, appreciate you, man. Love you.
Yeah, I love you, dude. This was fun. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Keep kicking butt.
Thank you. I'll do my best.